All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you, just like me. I'm going to be talking about 5 bands that have been more or less focus tested into the dustbin of music history for the most part. There are exceptions to this rule, but before I talk about that, here is the band Ryan. This is their album Wings. I got this a couple of weeks ago. This is a fairly new release, highly recommended. It's melodic rock. It's very up-tempo for the most part. Very impressed by the guitar work on this collection of songs, which, again, song after song, very strong material. Another great band from Sweden. As far as this feature of showing off new albums at the beginning of videos, I'm kind of 50-50 on it right now. Some people love it, some people hate it. There's really no in between on it. I'd like to continue to talk about new stuff, but my demographic, the people who I am doing videos for, they tend not to care. In a general sense, most people don't care. So I do it because I want to continue, showcasing the fact that there is music out there that you can listen to, because classic rock is fading away, and that's going to be the topic of this video to some extent. Before I get to this topic, please check out Modern Retro Radio, or modernretrofm.com. It's a radio station. They play music by older vintage artists, and they will play their new material, which is very interesting. They're playing all of the new Eric Clapton music that's out there that everybody is ignoring. So just for that reason alone, you should check out modernretrofm.com. Now, I've got my list, 5 bands that are pretty much off the radio. There are exceptions to this, but I'm saying this because their catalogs are so extensive and so amazing, and yet you might hear one song here or there by these bands. And I chose bands this time. I may do a video where I'm talking about solo artists, but here are 5 bands that I believe have been memory hold because they just don't fit in with any format these days. They're all classic rock in nature, but it's just surprising to me how little you hear. And this is in no particular order. At number 5 is Jethro Tull. Okay, Jethro Tull from the late 60s through the early 90s had a constant radio presence on FM rock stations. Certainly, they weren't a top 40 band, so that doesn't help their cause. People do videos on YouTube like, how come this band didn't do better on the radio, or something to that effect. And as I've said in the past, there's a whole book, and I'll show it off here, dedicated to the mainstream rock format. Here it is, right? Rock tracks, okay? This is a thing. Really got going in the early 80s. I believe 81 was the year where they started to have a rock chart that you could survey and see how well a song was doing. Maybe a song did really well on the rock charts and didn't make top 40. Well, that's the epitome of Jethro Tull, for sure. Such a talented band. Such great instrumentation. I know Ian Anderson, he's a bit of an oddball, but that's what makes Jethro Tull really interesting. And again, not everybody's cup of tea. I've had people tell me, Jethro Tull, why? And I'm like, because they're really, really good. Go listen to their stand-up album. Go way back in time, and you'll hear blues and folk and all kinds of different influences. Martin Barr, who is just a beast as a guitar player. Anyway, Jethro Tull at number 5. At number 4 is the band Rush. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally acknowledged Rush a few years back. And there's no band on planet Earth that has been memory hold quite the same as Rush. If you look at their rock chart existence, it starts the day that the charts go into effect. And they continue on even into the 90s when a lot of other bands weren't producing music that was being played on mainstream rock stations because mainstream rock at that point had gone mostly dark, mostly grunge, but the Rush music still fit in because it tends to be a little edgy, a little dark. It's not pop for the most part, and lyrics that are very thought provoking. Uh, Rush just had a tremendous run during this time frame. And yeah, maybe there's some Canadian bias here in the United States. You can pick almost any song. A song like The Big Money. Does anyone remember that song, The Big Money, which, again, Rush had adopted all of those keyboard sounds at that time. A song like that just fills your radio speakers, and it's like going on a roller coaster with a lot of Rush songs. They're just weird time signatures. I get it. They're not a pop band, again, much like Jethro Tull. I would say Jethro Tull is probably more pop oriented than Rush, but both with, heavy progressive influences, even though they're both very different. Rush deserves better on the radio. You make your radio station intellectually better if you're playing music by Rush, okay? And few stations today, other than like Limelight, that's kind of it. Like Limelight, maybe Tom Sawyer. Okay, Moving Pictures was a giant, all right, a huge album. But this band, and go back into the 70s while we're at it, you don't have to go from Moving Pictures forward. So again, just an amazing band and not getting a lot of airplay anymore. Next is the Moody Blues. The Moody Blues don't fit because they do thoughtful. If you notice, there's a theme here with progressive music to some degree, but the Moody Blues, highly accessible band. As a kid, I used to hear Tuesday Afternoon on the radio all the time. The smart radio programmers would actually put it on Tuesday afternoon, which was a cute but smart idea. Again, a lot of material from the late 60s into the 80s, and even as far as the early 90s, where they were still putting songs on the radio, like Say It With Love, which is a great song. But there are so many tunes that were deeper album tracks or just songs that hit top 40. There are songs that hit top 40, believe it or not, for the Moody Blues, especially during the 80s, like Your Wildest Dreams and The Other Side of Life. There are just a number of great songs from that period that have just completely vanished. And I don't really understand. Another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band. By the way, Jethro Tull is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which we've talked about that already. Next on my list here, In Excess. In Excess, this amazing band from Australia, broke on the scene very late 70s, early 80s, from what I remember. Had 2 or 3 albums out, and by their third album, they were kind of a big deal on college radio, and they were kind of poking through into the MTV generation. And then it just broke out so big on the next probably 2 or 3 albums. But they have so much material. If you go into this book that I just showcased, I mean, it's an extensive list of songs, and you might hear 1 or 2 songs by In Excess on the radio. I remember when Listen Like Thieves came out, and that whole album is just a juggernaut, just an amazing album. There's this tune called This Time, which I think really broke the band on rock stations. Like, rock stations felt, okay, this band, they're a bit R&B, they're a little funky, they're a little new wave at times, but all of that stuff mixed together was such a great blend. And you had this charismatic singer, Michael Hutchence, the late Michael Hutchence, who passed away in the 90s. Just an amazing band, a tight, funky band. They love the saxophone, and any band that utilizes a good sax is going to be a band that I will listen to. So anyway, In Excess comes in on this list at number 4. I'm going backwards or forwards, depending on how you look at it. The last band on the list, the Kinks. The Kinks have been focus tested out of existence for like 30 years now, maybe longer than that. British invasion band, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, deservedly so. And so much material. They had a 60s wave, they had a 70s wave, and then they had an 80s wave. A lot of people forget about, stuff like Don't Forget to Dance, Come Dancing, Do It Again. There's just a bunch of great tunes. There's this track called Lost and Found, which is from a later album, which I used to play relentlessly. And Ray Davies, just a great frontman, singer, songwriter, a band that was very tight and very powerful on stage. They just really rocked out. They added another level to whatever they were doing. And the 70s material, a lot of people have forgotten most of their material from the 70s. What Lola is the thing everybody goes back to. Just so much music, just a ton of material. And I would have to say the Kinks and then Jethro Tull, those two bands, they just have no home anywhere. Yeah, a good classic rock station is going to play a couple of songs by each of those bands, but this is based on their catalog, right? The Kinks and Tull have this huge catalog. In Excess, not quite as much. Moody Blues, they have a huge catalog. And Rush obviously has an enormous catalog, and they were fielding radio songs left and right. And this, by the way, was in the day when the programmer at the radio station could say, you know what, I like this song. I know they want me to play this other song, but I'll play that song for them, but I'm also going to add 2 more songs for me, for our radio station. And that's the difference between then and now. We don't have that going on in the terrestrial radio scene right now. We don't even have it on satellite radio. Everybody told me how much better satellite was. So I got some satellite radio, and they put their catalog on repeat. It's slightly more diverse. It's slightly more interesting, but it's redundant. There are no surprises for the most part, unless you go to like the Deep Tracks station, and that's a little bit too esoteric. There needs to be both familiar things that you can hang on to and some deeper material that you can add to it. And all of these bands would be perfect for a station that was doing both those things. People say, Dave, you should program a radio station. Well, yeah, that costs a lot of money, right? And the independent stations are really suffering right now because the few that are left are competing with corporate money and corporate advertising. And I don't want to get political here, but everything is political. And so the big dogs are going to smother the little chihuahuas, and it's going to be tough for them to, fight that, especially when ad dollars aren't coming in to the smaller stations. That's why you need to support a radio station like Modern Retro Radio. I know it's internet, but there are all kinds of streaming devices out there now. Stream it from your phone, stream it from whatever, and Bluetooth it and do all that fun stuff. And you can listen to a radio station that's independent and has a very diversified playlist. So anyway, those are my top 5. Jethro Tull, Rush, Moody Blues, In Excess, and the Kinks. Just crazy. I mean, when I was a kid, those bands were in heavy rotation all the time. and you knew the deeper tracks, and you heard them. When you hear them now, it's kind of like, whoa, where did that go? It just vanished. So I don't know. I think as time goes on, things aren't going to get better. In fact, I think they're going to eliminate more of this music. And because we're 40, in some cases 50 years, even greater than that, removed from when these songs originally came out, it's just going to go down the memory hole. I got a few folks that reached out to me who are in their 70s. They're like, nobody plays any of the music I like anymore. You know, and I get it. Everything caters to a younger audience, but the older people have disposable income. You know, you want to have advertisers reach certain demographics. You should cater to those demographics a little bit, but this has been the cycle since the radio industry started. There are no true oldies stations for the most part on terrestrial radio like there used to be, like playing music from the 60s and early 70s, maybe even going back to the 50s to some degree. That doesn't exist. And their logic is, well, those people aren't alive anymore, so we have to move forward. I get that, but what they do is all very arbitrary, because they'll keep some of those songs from like the early 70s and even the 60s on certain playlists. They'll keep them there because they figure, okay, the younger people know these songs too now because it's part of the musical canon. But see, they're doing just random selection. They're doing their focus testing, saying, do you like this song? Because we'll keep this song. You know, in the old days, you were convinced about liking a song when you heard it multiple times, and then you could decide for yourself, not somebody who's in a ivory tower radio building somewhere, you know, some corporate office, either in New York or Los Angeles or wherever, deciding the fate of the music industry. But that's currently what's happening. So anyway, I tend to push against that stuff. I don't like it. And, you know, that's why you need to find the music you love. And I guess just play it yourself, right? That's all you can do. Make your own playlist. Here's Wings by the band Ryan. Really good stuff if you want some new material. Kind of like modern rock meets classic rock. And definitely up-tempo, well put together, well thought out, great songs. Ryan is the band. Wings is the album. All right, folks, I am done. Please subscribe. Don't forget about Modern Retro Radio, modernretrofm.com, and Patreon, $1 a month, $2 a month if you want to support the channel. People say I beg for money. I'm sorry, I'm begging for money. I want to be a self-sustaining platform. This is what I do. I know it's pathetic, but this is what I do. So if you can help me out, that's great. If not, I completely understand. The economy is being run into the ground, so a lot of people don't have disposable income. So yeah, I totally understand. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. God bless. See you soon.